Thanks for joining us from the Ohio AgNet, voice you know with the news you trust studio, sponsored by Grain Equipment Company, where innovation meets execution. I'm Dale Menyo. Rain gauge continues to move up this morning. We're at 2,200 so far, and we're not too bad on the temperature either. As we take a look at the latest news, let's start off with, due to the continuing spread of the highly pathogenic avian influenza in dairy cattle and across the country since it's first detected in March of 2024, USDA's Animal Plant Health Inspection Service announcing the start of its National Milk Testing Strategy, or NMTS. Federal order requires raw milk samples nationwide be collected and shared with USDA for testing. Since the first HPAI detection in livestock, USDA has collaborated with our federal, state, and industry partners to swiftly and diligently identify affected herds and respond accordingly. This new milk testing strategy will build on those steps to date and will provide a roadmap for states to protect the health of their dairy herds, said U.S. Secretary of Agriculture Tom Vilsack in a news release. Among many outcomes, this will give farmers and farm workers better confidence in the safety of their animals and the ability to protect themselves, and it will also put us on a path to quickly controlling and stopping the virus spread nationwide. USDA is grateful to our partners who have provided input to make this strategy effective and actionable, and we look forward to continued collaboration in seeing this through. The NMTS is set up to increase the understanding of the virus spread in the U.S. by using a structured, uniform, and mandatory testing system to help identify which states and specific herds are infected with H5N1. It then supports the implementation of biosecurity measures to lower the risk of transmission to other livestock and protect farm workers to lower their risk of exposure. Today's weather brought to you by Seed Consultants. Simply better performance online at seedconsultants.com. Here's the forecast.
Some moisture working its way through Ohio here to start the week. I'm Chief Meteorologist Ryan Martin. Let's take a look at that forecast update. We have rain here, but that was expected, all right? System trying to come through overnight last night through today. Going to bring us anywhere from a tenth to maybe 3/4 of an inch on the top end. I actually think most of us are going to be half an inch or less, and some of you are seeing most of that already done, all right, with what came in last night. I think through the day today, clouds are going to dominate all the way through, but we are not seeing cold air come in right away just yet, so mild all the way through your Monday. We're going to be seeing cold air come behind the frontal boundary tomorrow, and that cold front will usher in a brutal cold midweek period with temperatures maybe not doing any better than the teens for highs. Overnight lows down in the low single digits. It is definitely an Arctic blast. High pressure dominates, and that keeps the cold air here through the finish of the week, Thursday, Friday, and even into early Saturday. However, Saturday afternoon, we start to see temperatures moderate just a little bit, and that comes on south low on the backside of the high and ahead of our next weather system. It's one that comes through Saturday mid to late afternoon on through Saturday evening. Rain, I think, but I'm going to say wet snowflakes can mix in because it all really depends on how much those temperatures climb. So rain or wet snow, liquid equivalent's going to be anywhere from a few hundredths to a few tenths. That's all. Coverage 60% of Ohio. We then settle in with a couple of days of drier weather before another front comes toward midweek next week. Could bring some significant rounds of moisture our way. I'm Chief Meteorologist Ryan Martin.
And thanks, Ryan. Joining me is Wendy Osborne, Director of Marketing Development for Ohio Corn and Wheat. Today, we're going to talk about ethanol. First of all, give us a description. Where is our current ethanol use worldwide?
The United States is the largest producer of ethanol in the world. That's kind of an amazing fact. As much as ethanol is used around the world, that the United States still is the top producer of the world. We also, the United States is the largest consumer of ethanol. So we do use a lot of ethanol here domestically, especially with our 10% mandate on ethanol use. But we're followed by Brazil and China, also are large consumers of ethanol.
When we look at consumption, is it an advantage in the marketplace to be able to have the corn locally, produce it into ethanol locally, use it versus what does it add to it? Because we're going to talk about exports next. there's some efficiency, but we ought to use as much at home as we can.
That's a huge advantage for the United States, is that we're not only the largest producer of ethanol, but we also are the largest consumer. So we are using the corn and the ethanol that we use here domestically. But again, now we kind of hit that 10% mandate. Ethanol domestic use has been relatively flat the last few years, and so we need to focus on ethanol exports and helping other countries to find the benefits of our United States ethanol as well.
Wendy, if we talk about potential new markets in the international scene, who are the best prospects and why?
And we work closely with the U.S. Grains Council that has been working on promoting corn ethanol around the world for several years. It does take a lot of work. They're seeing corn ethanol as a good renewable fuel. It helps lower greenhouse gas emissions, improves the air quality in those countries, better for the environment. Probably the biggest advantage is that it's also less expensive than fossil fuels, so there's huge economic benefit.
And thank you, Wendy Osborne, Director of Market Development, Ohio Corn and Wheat. According to the U.S. Grain Council's 2024-25 Corn Harvest Quality Report, the 14 such annual survey published globally, the 24 U.S. corn crop is projected to be the third largest on record, with the highest 100 kernel weight in history of the report, and lower broken corn and foreign matter, lower total damage, and lower moisture than in the last 5 years. Favorable growing season conditions contributed to the highest projected average yield on record and promoted good grain quality. Relatively warm, dry conditions during September and October also permitted an effective dry down and timely harvest, thus maintaining the overall quality of the 2024 corn crop. The 24 crop on average is entering the market channel with characteristics that meet or exceed each grade factor's numerical requirements for U.S. number one grade corn. The report also showed that 89.2% of the samples met all grade factor requirements for U.S. number one grade, and 96.2% met the grade factor requirements for U.S. number two grade corn. The information contained in the report provides the foundation for evaluating trends and the factors that impact corn quality. The cumulative report also enables export buyers to make a year-to-year comparison and assess patterns of corn quality based on crop growing conditions across the years. The report is based on 620 yellow corn samples taken from defined areas within 12 of the top corn producing and exporting states. Test weight of 58.9 pounds per bushel achieved the highest value observed in the history of the report. Also, the average U.S. aggregate moisture content in 2024, 15.3%, matched the lowest value observed in the history of the report. This year's corn protein concentration registered at 8.5%, equaling the 5-year average, and the council will present its findings to buyers around the world in a series of rollout events through the first quarter of 2025, offering participants clear expectations regarding the quality of corn for this marketing year. And don't forget, USDA will release its December crop production and World Ag Supply and Demand estimates on Tuesday. USDA does not adjust U.S. production figures in the December report, instead taking the opportunity to focus on the demand side of the balance sheet, which went largely ignored in the November report. Much to the frustration of traders, the December WASDE report also offers slightly more confidence in the accuracy of USDA's estimates, albeit slightly, and there remains categories that have proven to be largely difficult to predict early in the marketing season. Back with more after this.
Did you know that soybean meal is the #1 protein source used in aquaculture worldwide? Global fish consumption has nearly doubled in the last 40 years, making aquaculture the fastest growing sector of food production. Rich in protein content and highly digestible, soybean meal is an environmentally sound solution to feed the growing global demand for nutritious seafood. Soybeans, feeding the industry that feeds us. Brought to you by Ohio soybean farmers and their checkoff.
Since 1926, Nationwide has been rooted in agriculture. Founded as the Farm Bureau Mutual Automobile Insurance Company with a mission to protect farmers and their communities, we honor our legacy by offering solutions that evolve with the complex needs of today's farms. As the leading insurer of America's farms and trusted by 8 farm bureaus for 100 years and counting, Nationwide is on your side. #1 insurer based on 2023 direct written premium per AM Best. Nationwide Mutual Insurance Company and affiliates, Columbus, Ohio.
Exports of U.S. beef and pork posted year-over-year increases in October, according to data released by the USDA and compiled by the U.S. Meat Export Federation, with pork exports well positioned to set annual volume and value records in 2024. The October beef exports totaled 105,269 metric tons, up 1% from a year ago, while value increased 3% to 860.4 million. Shipments to Mexico maintained their impressive 2024 performance in October, while exports rebounded to South Korea, China, Hong Kong, and increased year over year to Central America, the Caribbean, and Asian region. It's encouraging to see an uptick in the demand for U.S. beef in China and Korea, where the economic headwinds have been formidable this year, said U.S. Meat Export Federation President and CEO Dan Holstrom. On the pork side of things, pork exports reached 252,411 metric tons in October. That was up 3% from a year ago, while the value also climbed 3% to $710.4 million. Although shipments to leading market Mexico declined slightly, this was more than offset by the growth in Japan, Central America, the Caribbean, Ocean, and Asian regions. For the year, exports are projected to surpass 3 million metric tons for the first time, exceeding the 2020 volume record of 2.98 million metric tons and topping last year's record at $8.16 billion. While shipments to Mexico eased just a bit in October, $217 million in exports is still a tremendous number, Holstrom said. This just highlights the remarkable growth U.S. pork has achieved in the Mexican market, which is enabled by the duty-free access delivered through the U.S.-Mexican-Canada Agreement. This access is critical and something we can never take for granted. Time now for the Louis Dreyfus Grain Analysis, brought to you by the Ohio Soybean Council and your soybean checkoff. Here's Ryan Martin.
Grain markets finished Friday on a mixed note. Corn was a little bit stronger, beans were flat to a little weaker, and the wheat markets really just depended on where you were looking. Chicago was down slightly, KC up a little bit, Minneapolis down ever so slightly. What were the markets looking at last Friday? Well, one thing, the currency wars, the currency discussion of last week was big even on Friday. The U.S. dollar rebounded during the day because we had a very, very strong jobs report out. And so with that dollar rallying, that once again puts a little bit of pressure on exports coming to the United States. Let's talk about that jobs number a little bit. U.S. in November added 227,000 jobs to the workforce. The previous expectation was 214,000. The strength in the labor market tempered expectations of consistent lending rate cuts. Dollar index was up about 0.3 percentage point last Friday. Currencies in Brazil, Canada, Australia, China, all weaker. There remains real concern over Chinese economic growth in 2025 following the failure of a stimulus package to come together to date. And this also is going to cast a little bit of a pall over raw material markets globally. Nearby Chinese meal ended the week with the prices at the lowest level since 2020. There was no flash reporting system sales on Friday. Spot crude was down about $1 a barrel through much of the trading day. Unexpected rainfall continues to benefit of the core of Argentina's corn and soy belt. That continues to boost the talk of a big South American crop. No trouble in Brazil so far. So we're just kind of adding insult to injury. Spot canola prices in Canada last Friday were up another $10 a metric ton, with EU canola oil still quoted at about 54 to 55 cents a pound. That was a momentum day on Friday, and corn and soy oil benefited, but we did not see it bleed over into any of the soybean and soybean meal stocks or wheat, just given those other topics that we discussed. I'm Ryan Martin.
And thanks, Ryan. I'll have your overnight figures after this.
Get the equipment and trucks you need at Ritchie Brothers' next Great Lakes Regional event on December 11th and 12th. This absolute unreserved auction will feature online bidding, and items are located in Columbus, Chicago, and Detroit. Choose from close to 5,000 items, including a wide selection of construction equipment, truck tractors, and more. Don't miss Ritchie Brothers' Great Lakes Regional event on December 11th and 12th. For more details, visit rbauction.com. Again, that's That's rbauction.com.
Sold them.
Today's market's brought to you by Seed Consultants. Simply better performance online at seedconsultants.com. Overnight, December corn up 1 1/4 at $4.32. March up 1/4 cent at $4.40 1/4 cents. January beans up a penny and $9.94 3/4. March $10 1/4 cent, up 1 cent. On the wheat, let's go to July new crop, up 5 3/4 at $5.77. December cattle, 187.37, up 40. December lean hogs, 83.30, up 87. March feeder cattle up $1.07 at $254.67. Thanks for joining us. I'm Dale Minyo. This is the Ohio AgNet.